Hey everybody, this is Perch. It's election day, and one comic that's just fun to review to look back on. This is October 1980, Captain America number 250. And this is basically Captain America getting drafted to run for president. Will he do it? Will he not do it? What kind of goes through his head? Can we get a nice issue that's going to tackle some politics, tackle what it means to be a hero representing the president, and also have some action in there? Can they pull it off? I love this comic. I just think this is a great book. So, what better time than Election Day to remember this one? Hey everybody, this is Perch. We're looking at Captain America 250. This is 1980, published right, in October, so a good time for a political comic book. This was written by Roger Stern, who is a name you don't hear a lot of today when it comes to comics. But Roger Stern made just a tremendous run of Captain America. Just some really great stuff, good storytelling, knew how to balance action and political commentary and kind of internal character drama and everything else. Roger Stern does not get anywhere close to the amount of praise that I think he deserves. But really, if you're looking to like go back and get into some omnibuses or some just some old comics, the Roger Stern run to Cap is I never seen anybody's list, but man, it's one to go pick up. And it's penciled by John Byrne. And this is John Byrne doing just a classic Cap. This is, again, 1980. So, he would go on to do quite a bit more and his style would refine, get a lot more detailed. So it's in many ways a simpler John Byrne, but it's, again, just visually beautiful, some great stuff. So this comic book gives us the tease on the cover that Captain America is the people's choice, Captain America president. Will he run? And we basically set right in at a convention kind of hospitality suite in a certain hotel. I like how the writing here was vague in certain areas. In a certain hotel has been taken by some gunmen. They're calling themselves the MLA, and they've basically captured the congressman and a hostess as hostages. And this is the 80s, so the hostess is written in a kind of a combo between like a newsie and a bunny costume. She's kind of anyway. So Captain America breaks into the room and he quickly dispatches everybody. We get some really nice action scenes of him being able to use the shield, use his kind of acrobatic skills, and just Captain America being heroic. This is really the action we're getting in this comic. So this is not an action-filled comic, but so we get kind of 2 pages of Captain America being great Captain America. And what's telling here, I will just say, is that even though this comic is by and large a lot of talking, a lot of dialogue, when they do the action sequences, they manage to quickly capture that this Captain America character, is very capable, knows what he's doing, gets some really dynamic artwork on the page, and it's really great stuff. Because it's interesting, is a lot of people have this perception that back in the 80s and other comics are just filled with action all the time. And if you actually go back and read them, you'll notice if you just look by page count, you don't get action everywhere, like a lot of people believe, but you do get the action they do is meaningful. It looks powerful, it looks substantial, and they put a lot of great energy into it. You just see a lot of kind of use of the different skills. One of the things John Byrne, I think, in terms of credit to Byrne, he knew how to draw characters, doing their sequences, using their powers, basically, fighting crime, whatever that happens to be, unique to them. So like when he draw the Beast versus Captain America versus the Fantastic Four, you'd see their action sequences they're more generic. They were really relevant to those characters. This is kind of an art that's largely lost. When they do fighting scenes, they do action scenes today, you could pretty much replace the characters and all play out the same. But at any rate, so Captain America quickly subdues the hostages, the kidnappers. He saves the hostages, gets the congressman to safety, comforts the lady, and as he's basically kind of wrapping up, getting ready to take off, basically this guy comes up, Samuel Underwood from the NPP convention. It's a new populist party. and he's shakes Captain America's hand, really thankful that he's here, and basically says, "Hey, I'd like you to come meet some people." And Cap's game, so he goes to what's drawn as a very shady looking back room. That's not how it's intended, but they got like the shadows and this lamp hanging down, a bunch of people with hats. Anyway, so they're basically saying, "Hey, here's Captain America. I want you to introduce these fellas," and Captain America just stopped the terrorists and everything else, and they say, "Why don't you run for president? You should be our new populist party candidate for president." And Cap's like, that's kind of you, but no, I'm not a politician. And he goes on to kind of push the point of, look, we formed the new populist party 3 years ago with giving the people a viable political alternative, something between the Republicans and Democrats. The same political idiots that the Dems and the GOP keep putting up, but the third party is just not getting any traction. But Captain America would generate a lot of attention, and we can actually make that change and force different people to come to the table and have a different race for a change. So everybody gets really excited about it, but Cap does not. He does promise he'll think about it, but then he like the little thought bubble, but not too seriously. I love that bit. But anyway, so nobody thinks that Captain America will actually go for it, but Sam has a plan. He's going to call the Daily Globe and basically get them to run a story to kind of draft Captain America. Because of his sense of duty, if he gets enough attention, it will get going. That's his plan. So Captain America returns to his little apartment over in Brooklyn, and he's continuing. The dialogue in Cap's mind, the thought bubbles, are really great in this whole comic. Just, I can't believe they'd consider running a candidate who has no experience in government. It's like all good stuff. Anyway, so Cap gets Josh, his neighbor. And, even the little bits like talking about how Captain America's feeling the floorboard shifting, so he knows somebody's coming. And, he basically goes and they're going to help his friend over here, Bernie Rosenthal, move. So she's packing some stuff up. Captain America's, they're putting stuff in boxes, and Cap's helping her move. And he's like, "Do you need anything else done?" And she's like, "I can think of several things I need done, if you know what I mean." A wink. But anyway, so they kind of go back and forth talking about this election and really kind of going into why everybody's for Cap running. They're like, you're apolitical. You could be a big change. So a lot of good kind of dynamics of how people view politics and everything else. But they present Captain America with the front page of the Daily Globe that basically says, "Cap for president, third party biggie says Avenger to run on independent platform," kind of drafting him in. So Steve is pissed about this, but this kind of makes the conversation go even further. And Bernie, who is, like she said, mentions that she's fairly apolitical, says, "Wouldn't it be great to have a president that we could trust? And wouldn't that be a nice thing for a change?" So Captain America, he heads to the Avengers mansion. He's mobbed by the press who want to know what he's going to do. But once he gets in, suddenly he learns that the Republicans and the Democrats also want Cap for their candidate. Everybody wants Captain America for their candidate. And they don't really get into it, but it's like, hey, there's this moment here where all the parties are in agreement that they want Captain America. It's the big unifying moment of the world. But anyway, Cap still thinks everybody's crazy, and he does not get it. But the Beast shows up, ready to be his campaign director. He's excited, and that leads to a nice conversation with the Avengers. This is the time, by the way, when the Wasp had this costume with one full leg and then one like no leg costume. That was bizarre. They were always billing her as a fashion director, but she had the worst the worst costumes. Anyway, Iron Man is very much against this whole thing, saying, you shouldn't run for the presidency. It's nonsense. I love this line that would get, definitely reflected later in Civil War. "Come on, Cap. You of all people should know better than to get mixed up in politics. You know the kind of red tape and corruption you'd be faced with." It's like these little moments that just keep in your head when you're thinking about Civil War. The Wasp is all for it. And the Vision is like, he comes in with insensitivity. "The question is not out of qualifications. You're a man out of time, Cap. 1940 solutions will not work for today's problems, you old bastard." But Cap's like, "Look, okay, this wasn't my idea. I'm annoyed by this. Come on." And so we flip to a little montage of a couple different people all basically saying, hey, what are his stands on minority rights, aid to education and housing? Is this a scam by the captain, the CIA? Daredevil's kind of for it. Spider-Man's okay. Doctor Strange is wanting to consult the Vishanti. Anyway, we get to J. Jonah Jameson, who points out that Cap's a good man, but when a bunch of movie stars started running for office, everything went to hell. And but maybe it could go. Maybe it could happen. And then Robbie points out maybe Spider-Man could be mayor someday, and then that triggers old J. Jonah Jameson, and Robbie's he's a troll back in the 80s. He was like a world-class troll. So Captain America continues to kind of ponder this, and he heads over to his old classroom where he learned about civics and what it meant to represent the country, and why it was a duty that we need to take seriously, all of it, the voting, the election, and everything. And he kind of thinks this whole thing through, remembers what it means to represent the country. And so Captain America, this ultimately leads to him going to the convention center and giving a speech, basically announcing his candidacy, or at least commenting on it. So after a big introduction, Captain America comes out and gives a story about what it means to him to be presidency, and why we must live in the real world, and why these things are very important, and the pledge and the responsibility of the presidency and the person who's going to run the country is a huge responsibility. And then he must uphold the dream. That's a pledge he made. And so he said, because of this, he cannot be their candidate. He needs to. He advises everybody: look within yourselves. Find the people who are going to make this nation strong. Hold them accountable. Hold them seriously, and lead with what your heart tells you. Lead with what the right thing to do is, regardless of your politics. So we get a nice little kind of end quote from John F. Kennedy saying, "The courage of life is often less dramatic spectacle, but no less a magnificent mixture of triumph and tragedy. A man does what he must in spite of personal consequences, in spite of obstacles and dangers and pressures, and that is the basis of all human morality." And the crowd slowly disperses as Captain America walks away. They kind of dump the signs and the hats and everything on the ground, and that was a conclusion to our story. A brief little flirtation of a plan for Captain America to run for president. So at the end, generally the letters page just doesn't have a whole lot in it back in this time frame, but there was a nice little note from Roger Stern written in March of 1980, and it talks about the story behind the story of why we want to have, basically when he was pitched with Captain America running for president, and basically the original plan was that he would run for president and he would win, and then we would have 4 years of stories set in and around DC. And Roger Stern being very much against it, saying you can't do that. It's too much of a distortion of reality. I don't know who's going to win the election, but I know it won't be Captain America. You're asking the readers to suspend their disbelief beyond the usual bounds of comics, or usual bounds of Marvel comics anyway. And he was very much against it. So, it basically came around again. This idea continued, and it's an interesting story about how Roger Stern kind of looked at all this stuff, put the ideas together, and really the story they wanted to tell, acknowledging the idea that Captain America, as a representative of the United States, would be somebody that people would want to have be president. And that was a logical thing to lean into, but why you wouldn't want to actually make him be president. So how could you tell this story, acknowledge the truth of the moment, but also keep Captain America and his ideals intact in that process? So, and I think he did this. This is a good story. Like I said, Roger Stern's comics were wonderful. I think there was great things there. And then, there was also a little poll in here too of basically saying, what would you want to see in, what are the major problems facing Cap and or America in the 80s? And, for Cap, it was making a go of having a civilian life was almost 60%. Dealing with modern society, settling the question of his own identity were the other two. But the response for America, just to give you a little time capsule of where the minds were at the time, the Iranian situation was 20%. Possibilities of a limited or world war, the energy crisis, Soviet expansionism, the economy, socio-political cynicism, terrorism were all things that were kind of on on people's minds. But the other piece was in the survey, what old villains, if any, should return. And basically, lots of excitement for all the villains, as many as possible, including the Red Skull, of course, leading the pack. But the last piece I'll mention here, and I think this is an interesting maybe topic for a future video, is the question of capped shield, with 65.9% of the voters, the readers, wanting to keep the shield's origins a secret, wanted to keep that mystery of how the shield came to be and what it all was. And I think that's an interesting moment that Marvel and all comic publishers, they feel compelled to explain things that the readers don't really want explained. And you'd see that play out in future decades. But all in all, really great comic. I think it is election day. Hopefully you did go out and vote and did your piece to represent where you want the country to go to. If you're in the U.S., that's very important. If you're out of the U.S., you can kind of look at all this with some bemusement. Hopefully everybody stays safe. There's no chaos in all this. This is our country, our democracy, and we have to live with it. So hopefully there's not the kind of chaos that many are bracing for. But if you want a good kind of remembrance of a good comic from back in the day, Captain America 250, Roger Stern, John Byrne, Cap for President. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts, comments below. Like, subscribe, check to make sure you're still subscribed if you don't mind. Thank you to everybody who shows up and views the videos. And most importantly, thanks for listening.